Well, it is that time again. It is time to discuss The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan, and we have reached the third book, The Dragon Reborn.
Well,
there it is, kind of.
Out of my face.
My name is Chris Mary Helpman. With me, I have David Green, and we have our special guest, a tradition now. John from WotUp is here to talk about the third book.
Yes,
welcome.
I'm super excited to be here. Thank you so much.
So great to have you again.
Yes, David, you had some TV news we could start off with.
Yeah, well, I didn't make the news, but I heard about it. Yeah, it was close. It was a close thing. No, although it kind of was. It was kind of weird because there's quite a lot of Amazon have suddenly got very leaky since we were last on here.
Yes, yeah, very much so.
Yeah, they're just like, I think they're kind of bored waiting for this trailer to come out. I think they've got it locked in, and they're kind of like, let's just get it out there. Let's just do it. Let's just go. They already know about it. They know it's going to happen. Let's just do it. And that's the funny thing as well with when they kind of leaked the script, well, the front page of the script and the title for the second season, for episode 1. And it's like, yeah, we know it's been greenlit like ages ago.
They kind of scrambled after that one. That was a mistake, I'm sure. I don't think they meant to do that just yet.
Definitely, yeah. And I think all this like, but I think Rafe is like delighted when it happens, because I'm sure he's just like, I just want to tell people about this and get this out as soon as possible.
He's a fan like us, so he is super excited, and I know that from talking to some people, that some of the cast and crew, and certain people in production, they're all very excited to talk about the show. They are excited about what they've done, and some of them, not all of them, but some of them are a little frustrated that there may not be as much information out there, and they can't be as forthcoming as they'd like. So I'm sure when this stuff happens and they have to officially acknowledge it because it came from the official accounts, so they have to say something, they're probably pretty happy in some way, shape, or form.
Definitely. I mean, the thing as well, like they've been working on this for a long time now. Like, not even when you take into pre-production, so when they're doing the concept art and scripting and all this kind of stuff, people have probably been working on this for near enough 5 years at this point. And you have the actors who started filming in September 2019. So it's like, I'm sure there's like, come on, let's just show them something. Let's do it. So someone in Germany also agreed. So just about 2 weeks ago, just out of the blue, they released a little trailer on Twitter, which was like an expanded version of the Moraine reveal, where you could see Trollocs fighting in the background with Lan and other things, which was and that was on there for a few hours. But before anyone noticed, it was on there for a few hours because it was on the German Amazon Twitter handle. And then
now there are bots monitoring all the different Amazon accounts.
yeah. And then it got pulled, obviously, but then the damage was done then, and everyone had kind of looked at it. Everyone had I think the Dusty Wheel spoke about it for nearly like 17 hours, I think, on a live stream.
They had a very long show, yeah. And then I had my video. It was not quite as long as the last one I did on the teasers, but it was still a good probably 30 minutes long.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, you've had quite a lot of news since you've been on last, obviously, because it's been 12 weeks since you were on or so. But you've, especially of late, you've had a lot of scoops is probably the best word to say for it. I mean, you've been having a lot of stuff coming your way lately.
Yeah, I've had a couple of things. I can't remember if the Guy Roberts scoop was before or after the last time I was on. I think it was after, I believe.
After.
At how he's playing a reoccurring character in the show, and then I guessed it to be Uno. I did not know the character. No one told me the character's name, but I guessed it to be Uno. And I really hope he is Uno, because I want to cosplay as Uno quite bad, because he looks just like me, unfortunately.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
That poor bastard.
But I look like you as well, so it's like we could just do it. All three of us could be Unos.
Yes. Once the show comes out, we'll just all be. We'll have an episode where we're just all Unos.
The three Unos.
Yes.
So there was that scoop, and then I got the scoop on the audio work for the trailer. The audio work happened on the 26th of April, and the person that gave me the contracts for that also let me know that usually the trailer drops between 4 to 6 weeks afterwards ish. So I expect to see the trailer sometime in June. That is my guess. And I had a source from production also tell me that everything is fluid. Their timelines for everything is fluid. At one point, there was that kind of a strange tweet about May 13th, and I think Nabla said something in May where he had said there would be a trailer. I know at one point that was what they had planned on, but it all depended upon marketing and finishing filming and a bunch of other things. So now that they're done filming season 1, I would guess that they're probably still going to follow the plan of releasing the trailer in June, which would make me very happy because I'm waiting, and I'm sure all of you are as well, waiting for the trailer for the show.
Yeah, because I mean, it's about when you think of name property stuff that Amazon have, they usually release a teaser around 6 months, about 4 to 6 months before the thing comes out. So that June would kind of, because we're looking, because that was the other little bit of news that came out unofficially again, was that Tor and other places are releasing new versions of the books in between November and December this year.
Orbit, I believe, is the publisher releasing the different edition of the books, and it's a guess that it's going to go along with the show. But I mean, it's a fairly good guess because my sources have been telling me for quite some time that Black Friday is the tentative release date for the show. That's what they would like to do, somewhere around there. And it makes total sense that they're going to release books to go along with the show when it comes out. I mean, Witcher did it, so did Game of Thrones, so I can't see why Wheel of Time wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, it always happens. Like Lord of the Rings, Hunger Games, Harry Potter, all this kind of stuff. They always get new releases, and then so we had that bit of news, and then we had so there was unofficial again rumblings that, like, you know, season 1 had officially finally wrapped, and that they're going to go into more or less go straight into season 2 after a couple of week break. They're going to start again in June, and then the new person that's taken over the main Wheel of Time Twitter handle, who had been suspiciously quiet since he took over it, or they took over it, should I say, just decided to just release a tweet of the script of the front page of the script for season 2, episode 1. It's like, this is great. And then it was like, oh yeah, you've caught me. Rafe will be doing a Q&A tomorrow because we've wrapped. And
I'm sure the Q&A was completely unplanned. I'm sure it was more of like well, we did this now. We probably should do something.
Yeah.
Well, out of the Q&A, I saw, because this is the actually only thing that I've seen, was from the Q&A, and that's that Nog is going to be in the show.
Yes, and that was confirmed, I believe, in his first Q&A. So that really wasn't new information either.
Oh, really? Okay, because that's what our Instagram account follows Katie Sedai, and she puts up a lot of that kind of stuff, and she had put that up after that Q&A. So
But you can tell that this was you can tell this Q&A wasn't all that planned, because I mean, the Q&As with Rafe are always good fun, but this one I felt it had the least amount of new info than anything. It was almost like he was kind of like, I've not checked if I can talk about this, so he was picking very safe questions that he could be like.
I asked probably 10 to 15 questions. None of them were answered, of course, because they were all they were all pretty specific, and they would have given information away that he probably wouldn't want to give away. But most of the questions asked were very general questions and get very general answers.
Did anybody ask if Nog was going to speak?
Maybe. No. What he didn't say.
No one has asked that, and I honestly think it might be strange if he does.
Yeah.
Because he was the only talking Prologue that I've seen in the series, and it would confuse viewers, I think. If in the first episode he speaks, then they never speak again.
Yeah.
Well, he gets killed.
They could do a joke about it. They could, like, if like, because obviously I think it's going to change the whole start of that winter. Because obviously we're going to see Beltane and Winter Night. I don't think you're going to have Rand and Tam going back to the farm anyway. They're going to try and make it all happen around the Wine Spring Inn. So you could make a joke about it. Like, someone could, like, kill one of the Trollocs, and it could, like, one of them was, did they say something? Did he just speak? And they're like, no. You know, they could just do something like that as like a little Easter egg.
Yeah.
What he made a noise and he died. It was
yeah, that's it. It'd be like the Hurley bird from Lost. You know that one when the bird goes over and it's like, say Hurley.
Yeah.
But
Cool.
the interesting thing, and it's something that we can finally talk about, is that there's a tie-in with my fantasy series and the Wheel of Time, because we both have this. You know, my book is called In Solitude Shadow, and the first episode of season 2 is called A Taste of Solitude.
Very much so. Yes. Yeah. Very cool. And do you know which chapter and book that's from? A Taste of Solitude. It is a chapter title.
Yeah. I thought it's I didn't actually look this up, but is it not from Powers of Midnight? Is it?
No, it's from Lord of Chaos, chapter 18, Taste of Solitude.
You know, that's my favorite.
Okay.
Well, that's my favorite book as well. That's my favorite book.
What was your favorite book and you didn't know?
I don't know. But I mean, you know, to be fair, there's a lot of chapter titles.
There's a lot of books and chapter titles. That's true.
And John has got like the most encyclopedic knowledge of anyone that I've come across with Wheel of Time.
No.
But what I thought was interesting about the reveal of the episode title is we can probably finally put to bed the rumors that the episode titles are correlating with chapters in the books that they're going to do in the episode. So like episode 5 of the first season is Blood Calls Blood, which is a chapter from The Great Hunt.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't necessarily have to mean it's from The Great Hunt anymore. What they could be just doing is picking chapter titles that kind of correlate with what's going on, but maybe not exactly where they're at in the book series.
Well,
There's no way they're getting to book 6 by episode 1, season 2. It's just not happening.
No, I mean, because like with the title of A Taste of Solitude, like the first thing that comes to mind for me is in terms of like, what does that mean in terms of episode 1 of season 2 is when Rand is trying to push people away from him, and like he has that argument with Matt and Perrin, and then he has that kind of like that feeling of, well, I'm alone and I'm different from all my friends. They're not really my friends anymore. That kind of thing. That's where my mind went straight away. So that's like, you know, and if they want to just borrow, you know, a chapter title that kind of sums that up a little bit more, because obviously they seem like they're borrowing quite a lot from chapter 2 in season 1. Oh, sorry, book 2 in season 1 in terms of that. So yeah, but it does make people think like, could they be bringing something from Lord of Chaos into season 2? Probably not. Probably not.
We know they're finishing season 1 in Faldaris, so they're probably not going very far beyond the end of the first book.
Yeah.
Maybe some of the storylines, of course, they're probably going to pull some from the second, maybe even third book, but there's no way they're going that far afield, I don't believe.
Sure. Yeah. Well, before we start talking about the first 8 chapters of Dragon Reborn, where do you think? What do you think will be the last kind of shot of season 1 right now? If you were a betting man, what would you think it would be?
If I was a betting man, I would guess Tarwin's Gap.
Yeah.
That would be my I would put money on it that the last shot of the season would be Tarwin's Gap. Would be the end of it. And I honestly think that they may even forego the Eye. They may not even go there, and it might just be all Tarwin's Gap.
Okay.
So we won't see the Green Man.
I don't know. I literally have, of the 2 episodes, of any of the episodes in season 1, episode 7 and 8 are the ones I know the least about. So it's all guesswork. But the Eye of the World is kind of a one-shot, a one-of thing, and it was very confusing to readers.
Yeah. well, David and I were thinking that Orlando Bloom was going to play the Green Man as just like a one shot.
Yeah.
That would be neat.
I think I actually would, if I was to put if I was to bet something on the Wheel of Time, I would bet some money on Orlando Bloom popping up at some point, because he has an exclusive contract to work for Amazon Studios, and Carnival Row is shot in Prague, and so is Wheel of Time. So if he was just to come in as like a one-off episode for something, you know,
it would be very
available. Yeah,
Green
but
Man.
I would love to see him more as one of the Forsaken, like maybe Ishmael or something like that. That would be.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I would think. Like someone, maybe even Belial, if we're gonna, but we won't say why.
No. Well, then, if it's not going to be the Green Man, I think he should be Nog.
Have him show up in costume like the stormtroopers. You don't even know he's there.
Yeah,
And he speaks. It's Orlando Bloom's voice.
that's the same with Daniel Craig in Force Awakens, though. Even in the cinema, like when he was talking, I was like, sure, that's Daniel Craig doing an American accent. It turned out that it was, because he's terrible at doing American accents.
Oh, but I thought Knives Out he does it well, but then he does it
He
kind
does a
of like
great
a
one. Yeah, that's a very
yes.
different, that's a very stylized one.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's talk about the Dragon Reborn. There's a chapter in there called "The Hunt Begins."
It is, yeah. Before we do that, would you be really sad if the Green Man wasn't in it? 'Cause I know you love a bit of the Green Man.
Me, yeah, sure. I would love to see how they do it, because I know to go back to Katie Sedai, she was talking about that she would have loved to see a shot of Loyal, to see how they do Loyal, and I'm kind of like on board with that. It's like, because they could either do, and we were talking with Matt about this, it could be really cringy how they do Loyal, but it also could be very, very good. But it all depends on which way they go, because I remember them having that discussion when they did Batman, the first Batman, Tim Burton's Batman. It's like, how do we not make Batman look ludicrous?
Yeah. Put him in shadows all the time. That is the answer.
Well, I remember
those suits look crazy when you see them in full light, and that's the thing with this trailer that came onto Amazon. What Rafe was saying was that the Trollocs, it's not finished yet, and they don't want people to see it because they want it to see it when it's nearly done. But these things like the Trollocs and Loyal and anyone like that's going to be like enhanced with CGI, they'll be working on that right up until picture.
The interesting thing about the leaked trailer, or the leaked teaser, I guess you'd say, with Moraine, the one from the German account, they put a lot of VFX into that. So I have a couple of people who work in the VFX industry that I've talked to about that trailer, and they used a lot of particle physics and stuff that is commonplace, but it's hefty CGI work. So they heavily CGI'd the trailer. So when Rafe said it was raw footage, I don't think he was exactly telling the truth. Maybe unfinished, but certainly not raw, because they did do that. And if you take a look at the land teaser they put out, and you compare it to the extended Moraine one that came out, the same particles are there, the same light is there, and they move in the same way, so they are part of the same shot almost.
Yeah, I mean, I think the 3 bits of moving footage that we've seen looks like the Matt and the dagger, Moraine, and Lan. I would not be surprised if that is all part of the teaser trailer when it comes out. It looks very. I know that the line that Moraine says in that bit is done for that section. It wasn't part of. That's what they're saying anyway. It was recorded specifically for that, which is what they do that a lot of time with trailers and teaser trailers anyway.
I'm just hoping that Loyal is blue.
Yeah, I thought that last time, didn't I? Yeah, we were talking, John, I don't know if you've seen the last episode, but we're talking about like how people's head canon, and we're talking more or less, people that were like kind of complaining about people being different skin colors than what they expected and everything. And I was my best mate who started reading Wheel of Time just shortly after I got him to start reading it. Up until like maybe a year ago, he just thought that Loyal was blue.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So he's gone 20 years just thinking that like
he's this big blue avatar looking guy.
Yes. I was like, how did you even like really think that? And he was like, well, I've never seen a picture of him or anything. And I was like, he's on the front cover of The Great Hunt, the American version. And he was like, I thought that was a Trolloc.
To be fair, the cover art for most of the books, the American versions, the original versions, were not that great.
No, exactly. Yeah. We're gonna do a special episode at some point where we're gonna rank the American covers and talk about them. So that'll be fun.
That'll be a great time.
Like obviously we got these ones like over here. We got this. when it fades out from my face there.
But I mean, that can't be what they looked like from the beginning, though, or those aren't like the original.
No,
not
the original
UK
Dragon
ones.
Reborn was the red cover that showed Rand on the cover with Calendor and the Aiel and Shamael with the big flaming eyes in the background. That was the original cover that came out.
Yeah.
In North America, at least, anyway. And
you get a little bit of a hint
here. All the covers for the originals, that was one of the better ones, I think.
Yeah, you get a little bit of a hint on the back of the UK ones. They have like a little hint of it there. You see,
That's
literally it. I can't get it because of the thing that you can see. Like, there you go. It's just this little one column of it. It's like, well, that's kind of weird. But like, yeah. So that's what we got. And there are still different colors, but yeah, some of them. The Dragon Reborn one isn't the worst one, and the Great Hunt for what it is isn't that bad either. But oh man, some of them, and even the later ones, are like which one's that one?
The Fires of Heaven. That's the bad romance cover.
Yeah. The one that I really don't like is Towers of Midnight. Is that the one where it's got Rand like with his fist up in the air outside that house with a big hole in the front of it?
Yeah, that's a bad one too.
Yeah. And it's just like, oh man, it's so out of proportion because like it's madness, but I love it at the same time. I love all of them. Their insanity. So, Dragon Reborn.
Dragon Reborn.
A new beginning.
Yes.
Although it's kind of the end of the beginning, I would say.
That this is the first book that starts the series, in my opinion, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely felt when I started reading it, apart from the prologue, it felt like this was like almost like starting anew because there's a lot of information, there's a lot of feelings and emotions. I think the Great Hunt was kind of like that one kind of started, the hunt started right away. And this has a very much like the first 8 chapters. I feel like it has a slow burn, even if there's an action scene in it. And there's a lot of things happen. A lot of people die in that battle scene. But otherwise, it was more or less like, I think, Perrin dealing with the entire situation as it is. His emotions surrounding it.
The slow burn is what is known as the Perrin effect. And that's what he brings to everyone. But like, yeah, I mean, the Great Hunt is like, as Raymond D. Feist would say, it was a ripping yarn. It's just all adventure, propulsion from start to finish. And then like, yeah, the start of the Dragon Reborn is kind of like taking the breath a little bit and just kind of taking stock of things. Spending time with some characters that we didn't really spend a lot of time with in the last book. But the prologue, you really like the prologue in this one.
I think this was the best prologue of them so far. I like, because this one definitely felt that it belonged to the rest of the story. I mean, in the first book, obviously, we haven't really seen what that's all about yet. And I still just see Billy Zane in front of me every time I even think about it, which isn't wrong. I mean, we all need a little Billy Zane in our lives.
Yeah, definitely. I really hope that he's in the TV show.
I still feel
I think he has a small cameo.
Yeah, I think so. He deserves it, I think.
Yeah. Well, I did rewatch The Phantom the other day, and the less we speak about that one, the better. But anyway, because this is, I mean, obviously it's the White Cloaks. They're talking about what has happened, where they're going, what they want to do. They, for the first time, call the questioners the Inquisition instead, which I thought was interesting. Seeing as
that.
What did you say?
I said no one expects the Spanish Inquisition.
No, exactly. But it was interesting because for the first time it was kind of like, or not for the first time, but it kind of grounded it back into like our world, like the Mastiffs, because all of a sudden he wasn't using his own language for it. So that I thought was interesting, and the talk, that kind of conflict within the White Cloaks, I thought was interesting.
Yeah, it's funny how you say. I'll let maybe John might talk about, because John's really good at talking about stuff without giving spoilers. It's interesting that you say this prologue feels like it's part of this story, because this prologue is kind of setting up a lot of things that come after this story.
It's our first real look at the White Cloaks, I guess you'd say. I mean, we've seen them before, and we've seen little bits of them, but it showcases exactly how intricate their little society is, and honestly, like I found a lot of parallels between the White Cloaks, between the Templars and the Spanish Inquisition and things like that for what we have in our world, and that's what I took from that. And I liked that a lot, and I enjoyed, as much as I don't like the White Cloaks, I enjoy reading their chapters because I like how well it's structured.
I like the White Cloaks, actually. They remind me of Glokta from Joe Abercrombie. They remind me kind of like, even if Glokta maybe isn't as misguided as the others are, but I like these people who believe that they are good, but when they're in fact maybe not so good. The ambiguousness in their characters.
Yeah, I actually quite like. I mean, yeah, I agree with both of you. Like, they're not. I like to read about them, not particularly like them all that much, but I do like Pedron Niall as a character, and I really like Carradine as well. I think he's a really interesting person to read about, and I'd like to see him in the series a lot more, actually, because I think he has a really good arc. Were you disappointed there was no Chris? Were you disappointed there was no the person sometimes known as Bors in this?
A little bit. I was just wondering what happened to him.
Well, that's him.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I didn't catch it. Is that supposed to be? Is it supposed to be obvious?
Yeah.
Or is it obvious later?
I thought it was supposed to be obvious then. Really, did you not?
No, I didn't think that it was so obvious.
What do you think, John? Am I just revealing a massive spoiler then, or is that?
I think you revealed a little bit of a spoiler. I mean, if you read really, really hard into it and really thought about it, you could probably see the parallels and see who that character is and how he's acting. But it is revealed plainly later on, I believe. But yeah, no. So now you know.
It's like I sort of guessed it pretty much when like the Fade is talking to him. Like, it's like, well, you're a dark friend. He's like, well, yeah.
Well, I really like his character mainly because he's so far over his head the whole time.
Yeah.
And yet he tries to maintain the facade of control when he's around everyone else. It's just, he must have so many ulcers. Like, just
yeah. I wonder if he like prefers to be called Bors than Carradine. I wonder if he thinks that himself in his head. The man sometimes known as Bors. The man sometimes known as Bors is going to get a glass of
it's a Darth Vader name.
Well, Orlando Bloom could be a good Carradine, actually.
Yeah, probably.
That would be really good.
Yeah, just pops in every so often just to do a little bit of just to get kicked around by some Fades.
Watch his family getting killed here and
there. Yeah. So obviously, I'll ask you this instead of just wading straight in there, Chris. Who do you think Ardiath is? Wormwood.
No, I didn't hear you.
Who do you think the guy who is advising Pedron Niall is then? Did you think who he is?
No, I didn't think about that. I didn't question that.
The guy who calls himself Ardiath, or was it Wormwood? Is it, or something like that? That's his name means. Remember him?
I didn't think about that.
Okay.
I
won't say any more then.
No, don't do that. I'll have to think about that. Read it again and think about it. But it's a good prologue, and it's a bit longer than the other ones, right? It becomes a little bit of a story in itself, and I like that. Yeah, I like that political intrigue.
Some of the later prologues, John, become very, very long, don't they? Do you remember which one was it? Was it the one for Crossroads of Twilight they actually released as an ebook as a pre-order? Remember that?
I think so. Yeah, I remember reading that one when it came out. Like you had to pre-order to get it, or you had to pay $1.99 or something to get it.
Yeah.
And I remember it was a good ploy because I paid it.
Yeah, so did I as well. And it was like it's 100 pages as well. Like it was big enough. Like it's especially like Crossroads of Twilight is one of the shorter books in the series, and like the prologue takes up a big chunk of the word count. So what do you think? Actually, John, what do you think about Perrin? Because obviously the first 8 chapters of this book are all from Perrin's point of view. Very, very like, you know, we don't get any deviations at all, not even like a little paragraph with someone else. It's all Perrin all the time, 24/7. So what do you, ask both of you, but I'll start with John, what do you think of Perrin, the character? Because I think a lot of people's enjoyment of this book comes from how much you enjoy Perrin.
When I initially read the series, and every time I read it, there are certain points in the book series where I have certain favorite characters, and it tends to shift and change here and there. But at this point, I always still really like Perrin. But there does come a time when I don't like reading him at all. This is not that time though. So like when it's from his point of view all the way up to, I think chapter 8's Jera, where we won't get into that yet, so we're getting a little far ahead, but it's all from his point of view. I like seeing that. I like him talking to the wolves. I like how he thinks, you know, slowly and stuff, and how he views Rand and Moraine and everyone else around him. I really enjoyed the fact that it was from his point of view, and I liked how Robert Jordan did that. He took certain characters and you got chapters from their point of view, and you got all of their thoughts, their prejudices, their lack of information, and he told the story from that point of view, which I really liked, because there was times, especially on a second or third or fourth reread, and you're reading it and you're like, no, this isn't how it is, but that's not how the character doesn't know the information, so they're acting differently. And I really like that from Perrin's point of view at this point.
Yeah. Well, I think I know the bit where you talk about where you don't like to read Perrin stuff anymore. I would agree.
Most people agree when you get to that point.
Yes, yeah. How do you feel about Perrin at this point? This is by far the longest. We've had like, you know, little bits of POV from him in the previous 2 books, but maybe like 5 chapters, 6 chapters altogether, maybe 7. So in the start of this book, we have more Perrin than we've ever got before. So how do you feel about Perrin at this stage?
No, I mean, I do. I liked it, just like John. I like the shift in point of view, mostly because I feel like we got everything. I mean, you could start reading the books from here. I feel like, I mean, you could skip Eye of the World and The Great Hunt if you so chose. I mean, if The Dragon Reborn is the first book that you pick up in the series for whatever reason, you wouldn't lose much doing so, because, and I mean, maybe that was the point, because you get a lot of information. There's really big info dump, but it's told from Perrin's point of view. And I think that was interesting because, yeah, he basically recaps almost everything that has happened in his head.
Yeah.
And also kind of in his interactions with the woman that he meets, that he brings to the camp, his interaction with the people in the camp, his discussion with Min, and stuff like that. So I think you get a pretty comprehensive idea of what has happened and what the point is, what they're going to do, and why it's so important to find Rand when he disappears.
Yeah, that's a real editing rule, which I'm kind of finding out at the moment, is that when you do the sequel, it's kind of like you have to write it as if someone who is reading it hasn't read the first one. And within the first few chapters, you need to catch them up on what's come before.
And it felt like
at a certain stage, I think when you get into like a 5th or 6th book in a series, it's just like, well, they're here now or they're not. But like when it's in that first couple, you have to be like, well,
I don't think I felt that The Great Hunt did that in the same way. It did it. You still got a lot of background information, but it was slower metered out throughout the book,
Yeah.
instead of it all happening in the beginning. But obviously the shift in point of view made it easier to swallow that than had it been like, I mean, during a period I read a lot of Harry Turtledove, and especially his World War series, which is like 7-8 books, and there every single character has like their own, in a chapter every single character has their own paragraph or their own storyline. This is happening, but every time they're introduced, he recaps exactly what they've done in the previous chapters, and it gets really tiring. It's like, yes, I know that this guy, I know what happened to this guy, I know that. I mean, I'm in the middle of the book. So I like that the way what he did, and I like that he didn't spend too much time in talking about who Moraine was and who Lan was. He just kind of like, oh, you know, he's her warder and stuff like that, and there wasn't too much of that info dump.
Yeah,
in that sense,
I suppose it's a good way to kind of shift in POV to someone we've not spent a lot of time with, because we can get his reactions to what's gone on that we haven't, that are fresh. If it was Rand again, and Rand was kind of thinking about what just happened, it's like, yeah, we know this already from you. And then the other thing then is to bring in a battle sequence, because then we can see like how Lan interacts and the powers that he has at his disposal, what Moraine has, how Rand struggle with using Sadine and everything like that. So John, like with the Dragon Reborn, obviously at this point, so we start off with them catching their breath, and Rand has pretty much formally declared that he's the Dragon Reborn, and he just disappears after a battle scene.
Yeah.
When you were first reading this series, and it was like, and you saw that the name of the book was The Dragon Reborn, and then it's like Rand is barely in the first few chapters, and then he just disappears. What were you thinking as a reader? Like, you know, the main character of the book is basically just gone.
Well, at the time when I was first reading the book, I was young. I might have been, I think I was 9 when The Eye of the World came out. This would have come out probably 4 or 5 years later, I think. So I was still in my early teens. I wasn't really thinking a whole lot about that. Like, yeah, it was named The Dragon Reborn. I knew Rand was Dragon Reborn, but at this point, I didn't like Rand as a character.
Okay.
I thought he was a bit of an asshole. So I was quite happy that at least initially the chapters were from Perrin's point of view, because I totally liked Perrin and Mat way more than I liked Rand at this point in the series, especially my first read. So I didn't find it strange. I was just happy.
Well,
yes.
I have a question, and because I should have maybe asked it before, because the White Cloaks keep talking about Rand being a false dragon. They say that he's a false dragon. Now, do they want the dragon to return?
So this is a bit of a spoiler, I think. But essentially, the way the White Cloaks think, Pedro Niles driving them at this point, and he thinks that the last battle is coming. He thinks that like Shadow Spawn and what the last battle is going to be is Shadow Spawn basically blanketing the land, like in the Prologue Wars. Mm-hmm. And he is, as the White Cloaks, building the White Cloaks up to fight them. So he has good intentions. That is his wholly good intention. He believes that all the Aes Sedai are bad, like they're evil, and they're basically Shadow Spawn, and that every Dragon Reborn up to this point has been a false dragon. And if the Aes Sedai are propping up a dragon, saying that they're really a dragon or could be a dragon, then they're obviously working for the Dark One anyway, so he has to be another false dragon. So he just doesn't believe any of that is real or true, and by extension, I think the entire White Cloak army thinks the same thing.
Yeah. So the real dragon could only be a dragon that is heralded by the White Cloaks, then. Pretty
much. But he doesn't even think that the prophecies are true. He thinks that there's a seed of truth to them, and that what would eventually happen was to just be him as the savior of mankind. because he's leading them up close.
He thinks that there doesn't need to be like any like one power shenanigans to win. He just thinks it's like good versus evil basically, and they can meet them in battle and defeat them with the strength of their purity, I suppose.
Well, so we have this huge, well, I mean, it's not an info dump because I think it would be unfair to call it an info dump, but really that's kind of what it is, but it's called through Perrin's eyes, which makes it more interesting. There's a big battle with the Trollocs. A lot of people die. Rand is gone. He's been pissing and moaning before then, and then he just leaves. He's kind of like Matt here and just like whines.
He's been having really bad dreams, Chris. All right.
Yeah, well, I don't care.
Dreams, like,
He's a little tired and cranky. Leave him alone.
he's been having bad dreams. You know, he's been and he's been sending his dreams to everyone else as well. They've all been dreaming about Calendor.
Hmm.
So we're back firmly into the Arthurian legends.
Yeah. Well, he's been having bad dreams. He's been wetting his bed, and he just needs to leave. Well, he disappears, and then the hunt begins. I think it's funny that there's a chapter called "The Hunt Begins."
Begins the hunt for Rand. Yeah.
In this one,
No longer the hunt for the Horn. The hunt for Rand.
They got that. Now they got to get Rand.
We're gonna get Rand. But yeah, so we are back firmly into Arthurian legend territory again now. So we've got the sword, a mystical sword that will proclaim him as the Dragon Reborn. And there's a lot more at this stage in this story. So in this like brief, maybe 2-chapter sequence, we have like a load of different kind of prophecy discussion that comes into play. Which like there's been prophecy talk before, but then there's like blood on the rocks at Sheo Gul, which again is very kind of Arthurian as well. We have like, you know, all the talk. Moraine has a big like talk about all these different types of prophecies where it's like, maybe he's fulfilled them all already. I don't know. They're so obscure. Who knows? And then we have this big sequence where Perrin is spying on people when they're dreaming or in this dream thing as well. So there's like a lot of like really weird stuff that goes on all at the same time in between this quite normal enough battle as well. So there's because we were saying before we got on, Chris, that you were like, I was trying to think of what happens in these 8 chapters, and not a lot does, but secretly quite a lot of stuff does happen in these 8 chapters.
Yeah, they are underneath. And then Perrin has a dream because Perrin, he has an encounter with the Dark One, right? Or is that? Am I thinking of something else? Yeah, he does. And I thought that was interesting. But anyway, since our time is running short, they try to find Rand. They arrive in Jara, right? Is that the name of this? Where there is much merriment because there's weddings going on.
There's much merry men.
Because merry men, not merriment. Because there are weddings going on. What is the deal with all the weddings?
Well, you know, people just wanted to get well. It's because of this will be a good one for John as well, because I end up talking about spoilers when I do this kind of stuff. But, you know, it's pretty much as it's said in the text, really. Like, you know, Rand just has this. It's the strongest Taveran that has ever lived, or anyone has ever known about, and he just makes these weird things whenever he's around.
He's the ability just by being in a place to twist chance. So in this case, he made everyone who may have a small chance of falling in love and getting married, they all did it, which is may not be a bad thing, but he's just twisting the chance. So the ability of things to happen. So something that has very small chance might be 100% all the time. Whether it be good or bad, or we perceive as good or bad, it doesn't matter. He just twists the chance of the pattern around him. So when Moraine says, when they get to the inn and Perrin's asking all these questions and basically being kind of an idiot about it, he's being very forward. It's like, oh, have you seen a man? And, you know, like, and they're trying to tell him to shut up. And Moraine basically says all you have to do is just watch the sign. So anything that is a little out of the ordinary, so for example, a whole bunch of weddings or a whole bunch of murders or a child falling out of a 12th story window and waking up without a bruise, or someone tripping and landing in a quarter of an inch of water and drowning in it, those are all things that Rand would do just by being in the area.
Reminded me a little bit of The Sorcerer by Gilbert and Sullivan, where everybody like wakes up and falls in love and gets married at the end.
Yeah.
No
Well,
Gilbert and Sullivan fans?
I've heard of it, but I'd never, not in as much detail as you, Chris.
Love a bit of Gilbert and Sullivan.
Well, no, that's it. So like, it's funny that bit because like Perrin is just being so stupid. It's like, how often does a whole village of people get married? Clearly, he's been here.
And then and then Perrin has a little bit of a personal, I don't know if you'd call it a personal thing, but there's somebody very much like him in Jara.
Mm-hmm.
That has just, and I think this was interesting when I was listening to it again, and I was telling David before that I had a hell of a time actually finding Dragon Reborn on audiobook. They didn't have it available on Audible. Of all the books, they didn't have, that one was not available in English.
Oh wow.
And I was wondering if that had something to do with like the rights or something like that having been, but I don't know. But anyway,
I got my copy from Audible, and to be fair, I've only listened to the audiobooks once out of my 53 rereads, and I did not enjoy it. But
no, I don't like those guys, Michael Kramer and whatever her face is. I don't know. They're horrible.
Kramer and Kate Reading, I love them. I love the way they narrate. I love all that stuff. That didn't bother me. What bothered me was so slow. I wanted to claw my eyes out listening to it because I would sit and I would probably finish the Dragon Reborn in a day or a little less than a day. That's how quickly I read, and I can't slow my brain down to listen to it. Like it didn't work for me.
You have to speed it up so it sounds like Alvin and the Chipmunks are reading it.
Yeah,
maybe.
That's what you're gonna have to do that with a show, John. You're gonna have to watch it at 1.5 times speed or something.
Just constantly, just put it on.
Well, no. What I was thinking of is like they all. I mean, Perrin has a similar arc to what Rand has. He's struggling with what he is, and he's and also the whole thing about like the insanity bit because he meets a feral wolf man, which is basically what I don't know, but I mean, and which is basically Rand's fear constantly that he is going to eventually go insane.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Matt's already going insane because of the dagger. So all the three of them have the same arc and are dealing with the same self-doubt and questioning, which I find that I found intriguing. Is like basically they are going through the same thing, but just for different reasons.
And the thing is with that as well, that the pattern is also trying to push them to accept what they are, because when the longer they're not accepting, bad things are happening. So you have Rand that's like,
yes,
he knows that he needs to go off and do something, but he's delaying. So like they're getting attacked and there's people dying on the plains and all this kind of stuff. You have Matt, he's not accepting who he is and he's having his journey. And even with Perrin, so even at the start of this book, when they kill the Raven and they're waiting for the Tinker to come in, and he's got this itch in the back of his brain. He's ignoring it.
Pushing the wolves away. Yes, yeah.
Pushing the wolves away, and the wolves are trying to tell them like there's Trollocs coming. They're coming for you. We know like, and he's ignoring it. He's not embracing it, and if he had, they could have avoided.
Maybe the Tinker Lady would have lived.
Yeah. So the pattern is like trying to push them and say, look, accept what you are, and this thing that he sees when he sees the guy, the wolf brother, who's gone too far over and kind of just lost his humanity. Again, I think I take that as the pattern, putting that in his place and saying, look, this is what is going to happen to you unless you find this balance inside yourself and accept what you are.
Yeah, because he does talk about the wolf brother that he first meets when he finds his power, that he was able to live with the wolves but still retain his humanity.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And he had done that for years and years and years. Because have you read New Spring, Chris?
No, this is because I only read the Eye of the World and the Great Hunt the first time I read them, so I haven't read any more. This is new as like new ground for me.
So he had Elias, that gentleman that Perrin met, had been a wolf brother for years and years, like probably close to, I would say, 20 years or more.
Yeah.
At that point, and he had found the balance just fine.
Yeah, and Lan knows him as well.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, because they talk about him.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know that guy.
Yeah, because this is the thing, like, you know, like with Perrin being like, he is stubborn, and that's part of his character. I mean, all the Two Rivers characters are stubborn. It's part of, like, you know, Robert Jordan, he doesn't go into much in terms of describing how people kind of look in terms of, like, you know, skin and stuff like that, but in terms of culture and the ways these people are, he does. And we know that people from Two Rivers are just stubborn, right? And so Perrin is like in a party of people where one of them is a warder that used to be mates with a warder who was like Perrin. And the Knight of Eye, who can be like, well, you know, we could probably tell you a little bit about this and help you out, but he's just refusing to kind of, you know, even acknowledge it to other people. And even when he meets one of these ones, he's kind of like, oh, I just need to deal with it myself, and the way I'm dealing with it is to ignore it, basically.
Well, I think that is about it. Like, that's the end of that chapters.
Before we go on that, John, what do you think of I mean, obviously we want to try and get you back before when we get to the finale of this one as well, where we can talk about the whole of the 3 books, and we'll have a lot more TV kind of stuff. But what do you, in terms of the first, and without any spoilers, in terms of the first 3 books in this series, like, how do you think the Dragon Reborn stacks up against the previous 2?
Out of the 3, it's my favorite.
Cool.
The Eye of the World was a good book, but I don't think it quite knew what it was yet. It was sort of almost written as a standalone, if you could have read it that way. The Great Hunt was much better, I found, but the Dragon Reborn is where I really started to enjoy the series. And then even further, the Shadow Rising is much better than the Dragon Reborn, even.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
Well, high praise.
Yeah. Chris will be the judge of it.
Yes, I will be the judge executioner of that. But no, it'll be interesting, because David and I are going to take part in an indie book reading challenge here come summer. So we'll see. There'll be a lot of reading going on for summer.
So, well, unfortunately, Robert Jordan does not count in the indie book reading.
He's as far removed from indie as you can get. Not even his Conan the Barbarian books are indie, really.
No, that's a shame, though.
Did he write anything? I mean, before Conan the Barbarian, before he started, like, what? I mean, I guess you'd say that he ghost wrote them in a way, even though his name is on them. But I mean, obviously, it's part of a series, because it's like Kevin J. Anderson wrote Star Wars books.
I think that was one of his first books.
Which one?
Warrior Valatai? I can't pronounce it.
Yeah, he had another pen name as well, didn't he? He has another pen name that he wrote under too.
He did, but I think this was one of his first books, because it was never published until recently. He had written it and he was trying to sell it, and it just wasn't going so well at the time. And it had a lot of very similar themes to Eye of the World and his Conan books and a few other books he had written. But it was really good. Like, I don't know why they didn't buy it at the time, but I think that was one of the very first ones he had written.
Yeah, I mean, even
again, it was published recently, like within the last 2 years.
Yeah, because even, like, I mean, you think of him as being, like, you know, this big figure in fantasy, which he is, but Eye of the World was only published in 1990, and he probably actually started writing it in the early 80s. So he was quite recently out of Vietnam by that point. So it's not like he'd spent like 20 years of his life before Eye of the World was kind of published and writing. He was just, you know, he did the Conan books and did the Wheel of Time. Really, that's basically what. And then the Wheel of Time took a huge amount of his career up. And what I always find interesting about it, he never really kind of threw away ideas, because I know watching the Dusty Wheel episode on the notes on the Great Hunt, the original kind of opening that he had, where it was like Rand washing up on some shore, and there's like an army that's basically that he announced that separate series he was going to do called Infinity of Heaven, which was the storyline for it, wasn't it? So he was like, so he must have wrote it. They had this idea in the early 80s or mid 80s. He was like, I really like this idea. I'm definitely going to do it one day.
it's like I'm listening to a Marillion podcast where they go through each album, like for like 2 episodes per album, and they talk about that, like how when they write stuff, they like don't throw anything away. It's like, oh, we're going to save this guitar loop for later. It's like stuff that they wrote in 1985 then returns in like 2005.
That's the way. That's never throw anyone who's an aspiring writer that's watching that. I know there is they've had a few people reach out that they really like the technical speak that when we sometimes go into it. Never throw anything away. They're always good ideas.
I have a stack of things, and I'm going to use some of the stuff for our secret project that we're working on.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, I like secret projects.
Yeah.
Well, you like spoiling secret projects? No,
you do.
I do. I like spoiling everything. It's kind of my shit, is spoiling stuff.
Yeah, you like scooping secret projects. That's what you like.
We should maybe have a character in that called the Great Spoiler.
The Great Spoiler.
He walks past the fruit stand and all the fruit just rots.
That's right. That could be my job.
Well, John, thanks again for coming on to us, and we'll hopefully it won't be too long before you have on next, because we're Dragon Reborn is probably the shortest of all the books, I think, isn't it? So we'll be rattling through this one like no one's business.
Yes, exactly.
Awesome. I had a good time. Thank you so much for having me. Before I go, can I mention one thing that I have coming up?
You can, of course.
For anyone listening who does not know, as I have a YouTube channel and I do mainly Wheel of Time show news, but people have been asking for quite some time. I'll break things down and I'll talk about spoilers and news and rumors and things. And there's a lot of, we already know this because, and then I just go on because I've already reported on it once or twice. So people have been confused, especially the newer people to my channel. So I've gotten together with Geeky Airy from over at Watt Series, and we're doing a series of videos, and they're going to show up on the channel probably within the next week or so for the first one. And we're breaking everything down by episodes. So we're going to go into episode 1, everything we know, all the actors and actresses, all the set photos, all the rumors, all the locations, everything and anything we know about episode 1, we're going to do in that video. And then we're going to carry on and do one for episode 2 and all the way up to episode 8. They're obviously going to get a little thinner as we go along because we know less about the further on episodes, but the first couple episodes we know a fair bit about, and we should be able to jam it all into one video for people to watch.
That sounds awesome.
Excellent.
Great. And so the first one will probably be in the next week or so, is it?
Next week or so. The planning is done, and now we're just getting the graphics together, and I'll probably record it Wednesday or Thursday, and then she has to record her pieces. It'll be up by next weekend, I would say.
Excellent. Great stuff.
Very cool. Very cool.
Nice.
Well, David, what do we usually say?
Until the next turn of the wheel, I believe.
Like this? This is my cue. I can't see my